Call the meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sonia, if you do roll call.
Yeah, Commissioner Dippel,
Here.
Commissioner Corbin,
Here.
Commissioner Wire, Commissioner Shaw,
Here.
Mayor Lindsay.
Here. You have before you the agenda for this evening. Do we have a motion to adopt?
Make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Under appearances and acknowledgements, street closure for the Chamber Halloween event, Egan Avenue downtown. Eric, did you want to speak to that?
I certainly can.
Okay.
Eric Hortness, Director of the Chamber of Commerce. The last couple of years, the downtown trick or treat event has gotten to be very well attended and probably a safety concern with the streets being open. We've had crossing guards in the past and DSU athletes helping with crossing guards. And talking with Jameson, we both feel that it would be probably in the best interest of everybody to close the streets on that 31st from roughly 3:45 to 5:30. And we'll have some DSU athletes there to put up the barricades, take them down, things like that. All of the businesses on that 4-block area of Egan Avenue should have already received a letter giving them a heads up that potentially that's going to be happening. So.
Very good. And it's nice to get the information out a lot, especially with the time, you know, because then people can plan for it. So. Any questions at all? Okay. Do we need a motion on this one to carry it forward?
Nope.
Okay, I saw Justin stepped in, stepped out. Okay, number 2, City Hall, Police Station, Public Forum, October 11th, 5:30 p.m. So
Make a note there, we had done an update to the public a month or so ago on the status of that project, and some different changes are going on. We want to also continue to be transparent and open and communicate with the public and anybody who wants to learn more information. So to that end, we are scheduling a public forum on Tuesday, October 11th at 5:30 p.m. here in the commission room. And that'll be an opportunity to more in an informal manner present to the public, for them to ask questions, for us to answer. Be happy to show people around the building so they can see what we're working with here as well, and some of the constraints that we face in our current facility and the need for renewal. October 11th, 5:30.
and the reason it's on Tuesday is because we'll have our commission meeting on that, but also because Monday's a holiday. So, all right, reinstatement of parking restrictions near DSU campus. Chief, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so obviously, over the past couple of years with the construction that was going up in the northeast side of town, we had lifted all parking restrictions between Washington and Prairie. And then also from 9th Street down to, I believe it was 4th Street. Most of that construction, with the exception of Prairie, is been completed. And so we're looking to reinstate those that they were effective this morning at 8 a.m. So as of yet, we haven't written any parking tickets.
Very good, very good. So, anyone else have any questions or comments? All right, we'll move on. Is there anything anyone wants removed from the consent calendar?
Motion to approve consent calendar. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Seeing no old business on new business, authorize the mayor to sign the railroad crossing agreement. Jameson, do you want to address that?
Yes, so BNSF has reached out to the city and asked to have a cost sharing for a railroad replacement at Grant Avenue. This construction would occur in 2023. The agreement has an estimated cost to the city of $31,218. I consulted with the Department of Transportation, and from their point of view, this is a pretty standard cost sharing for replacements of crossings within the state.
And just to add a little bit to that, they gave us the option of closing that. And when we looked at it from a safety standpoint, that's the only route from the south side of the tracks to the north side of the tracks until you come clear over to Washington Avenue. And so since we've already have another one that has been closed, it was felt that it was best to move forward and keep that access open, especially for those people down that part of town. So any questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize mayor to sign a railroad crossing agreement.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 2, discussion and possible action on donation of Runnings property to LAIC. Did you want to speak to that?
Yeah.
Very good. Brooke will enlighten us.
Thank you. For everyone that doesn't know, Brooke Rolog with the LAIC. Little history, about this time last year, we had reached out and had our first contact with the regional manager of Runnings. And they had expressed wanting to sell the old Runnings facility. At that time, he'd received calls on and off from private businesses expressing interest, but nothing ever came to fruition. Flood restrictions and FEMA regulations really limit the uses of this property. So it was proposed that the Runnings would actually give the 3 parcels to either the city or the LAIC. But without a true purpose for the property, we're very hesitant to move forward. You know, if we're going to take something on, we want to make it something usable. So fast forward, we formed a small group of community members, many of which are here today, and came up with a concept of an indoor recreation. While not all the details are worked out, some of the items being discussed are indoor batting cages, indoor pitching cages, archery, and like agility training, but not limited to. Other considerations would be youth soccer and football. This would alleviate a very robust schedule for the Armory, and it would also keep some of our families in town who are otherwise leaving to seek out these trainings in the winter, the cold winter months. I see a substantial benefit to the community, especially for our youth. So we're extremely limited to the uses of this property, but we feel like we found a really good fit. So we break down the funding pieces of it. That's the big task, right? Is how are we going to actually convert from what it is today to what we see it being in the future. And so I have it broken down in my mind into 3 different buckets. One being the actual recreation of the facility itself. I see that coming from donations from community members pooling together. I see the equipment coming from the associations, donations from the associations. But the reason I'm here today is to actually ask the city to purchase the building back for the cost that the LAIC incurs for the demolition, as well as for the taking on the facility and being the operator long-term. So I find it very exceptionally exciting to think of the community members that have been pulled together to even make this concept somewhat of a reality, as well as the cost sharing. We're not asking just the city or just the associations or just one entity to take on the burden. We're really working together, breaking it up to where everyone can have a clear vision of the goal, and we can all bite off just a little bit.
And to take that a little further in that, the old Jack and Jill grocery store, and that is something that is in the floodplain and is not in a state of future use. That would be demolished, as well as the gas station on the property would be demolished. So the piece of property in that the group has discussed using is just the main Campbell's, former Campbell Supply building that was in use. So I've been in discussions in that with the group, and I fully support this. I think it's the right thing to do for Madison. Questions or comments?
I like the visionary concept behind it. And I know there's been a lot of work that's gone in behind the scenes on this, and I think it's a great benefit to the youth of our community. I think it's vitally important.
Yeah, I think we could use a facility like this. A lot of people are going to Sioux Falls and neighboring communities to do indoor practice in the winter, so.
Yeah, I'm also for it. I'm personally one of those that are driving to Sioux Falls for stuff like this, so. I do have a question though. So at what point is it expected for the city to come in? Are you planning to solicit the Interlakes Youth Softball and the baseball groups to get that equipment, or is that gonna be part of our staff to get it up?
No, the goal would be to make it a turnkey facility for the city. The city is gonna be the end operator of the facility. I've been asked timeline, and that's probably a harder one to answer right now,
Sure.
just because it's hard to get contractors that aren't busy and booked up for the next, how many months or, even up to the full year. And so that's probably one of the biggest, time restrictions of the unknown. When is this really gonna be back in your hands?
Questions from the audience?
And then staffing, is this gonna be a facility that's open similar to the community center or as needed kind of thing, or how?
I would compare it more to the city armory. Currently,
City Armory. City Armory has a tremendous amount of use,
Mhm.
and also it has some abuse. And the abuse that we always get concerned with is when they're practicing in there. And if you haven't paid much attention, that there's spray on asbestos in the armory. And we have to make sure that that doesn't get damaged, because what you have to do is you have to keep it painted to keep the friable asbestos under control. And so moving some of the things out of there that have the, baseball practices and things like that to an area that doesn't have the asbestos in it will be very beneficial for the use of this city armory. And the city armory, and that is booked up sometimes till 9, 10 o'clock at night, just because of the amount of use that is requested.
Do we need to put, I know, I've seen some estimates about the demolition and stuff, but. So that was around 70,000 from what I recall, right?
correct, yeah.
So then there's gonna be additional expenses with. What else?
Utilities.
Utilities.
Mhm.
Okay. I mean,
I'm thinking street dance.
I heard Chester's looking to have another one.
Yeah, so are you asking about costs for the conversion of the property or for the ongoing use, or?
yeah, I mean, do we need to set a not to exceed or anything like that type value, or is this?
You certainly have the opportunity to do so if you wish. So the 70,000 would be the bulk of it, and Brooke can touch on this as well. Utilities would be needing to cap off some water and sewer service lines. They're also doing a reappraisal of the property to help increase the amount that they can put into it according to the floodplain restrictions. So I'd say a realistic number would be the 80 to 90,000. It could be higher than that, could be lower than that. With 70 is probably at least the minimum. We could look at having some city staff assist with some of the demolition, or at least the removal or things that we may be able to help with, and that could reduce some costs as well. The ongoing costs would be, for the operations, would be maintenance, utilities, that sort of thing.
The other thing is that the amount that we can put in it in any 2-year period is 50% of the appraised value. And so that's one of the reasons for having it appraised, because that in itself will set the limitations. So, at this point in time and not knowing what the appraisal is, my guess is that, that 100,000 to 150,000 isn't going to be far from what the maximum is that we can do in any 2-year period.
So what kind of action do we do? Want me to make a motion to move forward?
So the LAIC board in their discussions took action to accept the gift and to do the conversion pending city commission approval. So I think action to continue to work with LAIC and in the end accept the property at the costs incurred would be.
Okay, I will make a motion to move forward with the donation or the acceptance of the property at whatever value comes in it, I guess. Sure, that wasn't very good.
Well,
Usually the
there
customer-
won't be a cost on coming in because the cost already is gonna be $1 to receive it. The
Sure.
costs are gonna be incurred in the demolition of the old Jack and Jill building and the gas station. And then whatever minor, adjustments would be done to the building within the first 2-year period. So as, you mentioned, the cost of purchasing it, the cost of purchasing it is $1. So
For the cities, the cost of purchase will be from the LAIC and that will
it
be.
will
at
be
80 to
their
90,000 range.
their costs, their incurred costs at that time. So if you want to put a value on not to exceed,
It's a tough one.
that would be a tough one, or it would be to, work with the LAIC.
And I'm happy to keep you
Right.
updated, as progress, as we make progress through the project. I'm happy to give regular updates.
And my understanding when we talked is that you're looking for donations to actually cover the cost of the improvements. So things that they're looking to improve in the facility, they're looking for donations for that.
So the cost incurred that we're really asking of the city is surely the nuisance of the Jack and Jill as well as
The
gas
demolition,
station.
the demolition of the 2 buildings that are currently on there that are not usable.
Did we approve them?
So I'm in favor of putting a dollar amount on it.
Yeah.
Really?
Just in case, we don't want to hamstring the other.
So they can come back.
I suppose it could, we can put a dollar amount on it.
Has
The dollar amount, I think
anybody
it'll be-
checked
I'm sorry.
into the
Hey,
FEMA?
Bob, if you would please come up and identify yourself for those people who are at home listening. It is important that they hear your question, but it's also important that they know who it's coming from.
Bob, Phil, I was just wondering, has anybody checked in with the FEMA regulations before we move forward?
Yes, we have, and that's where I just mentioned to you that we can only upgrade it to 50% of the appraised value in any 2-year period.
Okay,
So we won't know what our cap is for the first 2 years till we know what the appraisal is. And so the appraisal will be the determining factor as to what could be done in the first, at least in the first 2 years.
okay.
Thank you for the question. Marshall, please.
Marshall Benner. I think this is a good plan to move forward on. Do have one question. Is the demo part of the 50%?
No, the demo is outside the 50%. Because it's also taking out 2 other properties and on that site, each property, the gas station, the Jack and Jill and the Campbells, each have their own legal description and were separately owned at one time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are fuel barrels out of the ground?
It's our understanding, yes, they have been removed. Any other questions? Okay, do we have a motion?
A second.
Try that again.
I think we could take it as a motion to work with the LIC with the understanding the city is open to taking over the property. We don't need to attach a number to it, but just based on the estimates now, the 80,000-90,000, I'd say that Brooke would be happy to come back to the commission if we're seeing that number getting above that amount.
Second.
Hey, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Can I just say one thing?
No, thank you.
Sorry.
Oh,
I just want-
okay, yes.
Sorry, man, it's still loud.
Yes,
I just wanted
absolutely.
to say thank you all. This wouldn't be even a consideration if it wasn't, if it wasn't for your guys' open mindedness to convert the building. So thank you, everyone. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Number 3, discussion and possible action on the recycling services contract. And Jameson?
Yeah, so the city had bid out the contract for recycling services and had that opening a few weeks ago. The current contract is held by Valiant Living, and they were the only bidder for a new contract. That is in the amount of $10,187 per month. It's about twice as much as it is now, and due to that increase, staff have looked at all the options that we have at our disposal and came forward with some recommendation. Ultimately, what we're looking for is the permission to negotiate with Valiant to try to achieve a lower amount. And then we would bring that back to you along with a couple of the other options that are detailed in the memo for your final consideration. But we feel we can't have a good, it's harder to make a decision right now since we don't have all the information that we could have with that lower amount. I guess I can go real quick through the other options, and we had a couple at the top here that we don't recommend. One would be to accept the bid as is, and that would result in a significant increase to the solid waste rates. Secondly, another thought we had was it's possible with one bidder at $122,000 a year, that if that was made public as it is now, that maybe there is some entrepreneurial soul out in the community that would want to throw their hat in if we wanted to rebid it and try for a lower rate. So that isn't an option that is at your disposal. We don't think it'd be very likely. We did list it because we want you to have all the options to decide between. The option we're recommending is to negotiate with Valiant Living. And there's two more options, which I think we would keep on the table to bring back to you, depending on what that Valiant Living price could be changed to. One would be essentially to hire staff to do it internally. We believe we could do that with 2 FTE. It would cost us about $102,000, so it'd be $20,000 less than the bid. However, we do have concerns about filling those positions and keeping them filled. So that'd be a challenge for the city. And then finally, we often get questions on single stream recycling. Frankly, it is very friendly and useful for the consumer, but is much more difficult for the provider to implement single stream recycling. But we did want to look at those numbers to see what they're like. One of the upfront costs would be about $150,000 for carts to provide single stream recycling. And then we looked at talking to Millennium Recycling, which is a provider in Sioux Falls, and getting some rates figured out for what it would cost to take recycling to them. One thing I'll note is this is a very volatile industry. Gary noted to me that when many cities were moving to single stream recycling, there were companies like Millennium that would buy your recycling for $2 a ton, and now you have to pay them $40 a ton to take it. So it's very much gone the other way. Cardboard is where the majority of recyclables are at when it comes to weight, and it's at $140 a ton right now. A couple of years ago, it was at $30 a ton. So very volatile industry, and that makes it difficult for us to plan things going ahead. Again, our recommendation is to allow staff to negotiate with Valiant Living to achieve a lower contract price and bring these options back to the commission for final consideration.
Any part of any motion, though, if this was bid, needs to include a rejection of all bids.
I have to abstain from voting. I'm on the board.
Understood.
Gary, would you like to add?
Pretty much covers it. I guess if you have any questions on any of those options, I guess we can discuss them.
How are the finances of the recycling center currently?
That's a good question.
Thank you.
As far as like whether we're losing money,
It's not a moneymaker, it's a more break even.
we're not losing money.
Why do we have a recycling center? Just 'cause it feels
If
good
we
to
don't,
recycle?
no, if we don't have a recycling center and we are hauling recyclables to the landfills, then we have to pay higher prices there
But do we?
also.
Are we going to
It's-
Brookings?
It's similar. So right now, our landfill, we take our garbage to Brookings, and it's $45 a ton. So you can see how there is a slight savings by taking recyclables to Sioux Falls for $40 a ton. And of course, there's the benefit of reusing materials that would otherwise be going to the landfill. So I think there'd be many people in the public that would be upset if recycling wasn't an option.
Well, how upset?
A bit 1 to 10, I don't know.
Has Valiant Living offered any explanation of the?
No, we haven't reached out to them yet.
In the past, and that they look at the number of staff that they have working in there and they put an hourly value. And that's what they did when I was mayor before and we were negotiating with them. And so it is a negotiable amount. You know, so. And in the past, and that they did come in high, and then we visited and negotiated, and we reached an amicable number. So I am in full favor of letting the staff move forward on this and doing the best that they can for the city.
So you come up with, we might have some hard decisions to make.
I agree, yeah. By we, I mean, you guys a lot. I'll just bring you the information.
Do you want a motion to reject all bids on the recycling services contract? Is that
Yeah,
what the
From
motion
what David
is?
said, we'll need that and to negotiate with Valley.
Do you want that as part of the motion?
Or you could make it in two separate motions,
Yeah.
just to be clear.
Make it all one.
Yeah.
That's my motion.
Okay. And with that, let Jameson pick the English and that put in the sentence. Fulfill your thoughts.
Everybody knows what we're voting on.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. And then you get abstain. Okay, very good. All right, number 4, authorize the mayor to sign GPAC LLC contingency search agreement. And again, I'll ask Jameson to highlight this.
We have been advertising for a utility director for a few months now, and we've been unsuccessful in achieving an ideal candidate. One idea that was brought up was to engage in a company that consists with recruiting candidates. And GPAC is a company that we have identified. One of their employees is a native of Madison. It would be the native person we'd be working with. As part of this agreement, this sets it up so we could work with them for any position. At this point in time, we only be wanting to work with them in the utility director. We don't see that this would be necessary for other positions. It sets it up where that GPAC is paid a service fee of 25% of the candidate's first year compensation. If they do not pass anybody along, if we hire somebody that didn't come through them, there's no payment at all. If we hire somebody that they have passed along and it doesn't work out for whatever reason the first 30 days, they will make all reasonable effort to find a replacement candidate. I think those are the highlights of this. It has been just over 3 months since our previous utility director has left, so there is money in the budget that would have gone towards this person's salary that can be used towards this fee for GPAC.
Questions or comments?
Last comment, sorry. I think from what I remember, they said they had 4,000 recruiters around the country, so they certainly have a wide net that they can cast, and they know people in many industries.
Questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the GPAC search agreement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 5, update on the Madison System Improvements Project.
Thank you. Weston Blasius with Banner Associates. I'm going to give an update on a couple of the infrastructure projects in town. I'll start with the water improvements project. This would be the rural development project. Starting with phase 1A, which would be the portion that was completed last year. It's still under contract. The contractor's working through a punch list and working through some items to finish out that project. Moving on to 1B, that'd be in the northwest part of town. Contractor's working on utilities on Union Avenue. There's been some concrete work that's been performed as well. The residents in that area have probably seen a string line up in front of their driveways. I believe the contractor's gotten access to most residents now, or restored access to most of those residents, other than on Catherine. Their plan moving forward is to complete the finished grading wherever they have curb and gutter completed already. They're going to complete the utilities on Union Avenue, likely either by the end of this week or either Monday or Tuesday next week. And then they'll be working on reconstructing that roadway on Union. I did talk to the contractor today. They're planning on mobilizing the asphalt crew in on the 12th. And they'll begin placing asphalt on any of the blocks that have been finished graded and have the concrete curb and gutter work performed.
And I can step through them in the phases, and at the end, if you've got questions, I'll be happy to answer. On phase two, this would be in the northeast portion of town. On phase two, the contractor is completed with all the utilities on that phase. Currently, they're working on Prairie Avenue. This would be between 3rd and 9th. They're working on the roadway reconstruction. There's gravel base course that's been placed from 3rd Street to 7th Street. The concrete contractor has put down curb and gutter between 5th and 7th. They'll move between 3rd and 5th yet this week and complete that curb and gutter. There'll be a number of miscellaneous concrete towers that they'll have to make. But while they're performing that, their roadway crew is going to move from 7th to 9th. So likely by tomorrow, depending on the weather, they'll be up on Prairie Avenue between 7th and 9th for starting that roadway reconstruction. That contractor has scheduled paving to take place the week of the 17th. So when CO Pros comes to town, they're the contract that's going to be doing the paving. They'll likely begin on the 1B project, get some of the work completed, move over to the phase 2 project, and then have to kind of leapfrog back to 1B and finish up on 2. That's the tentative schedule right now. It is obviously weather dependent, and of course, the concrete work has to be completed before the asphalt work is done. Any questions on the rural development project?
What are the parameters for asphalt applications?
Primarily, so one, obviously have everything to grade, and that'll have to be approved before they're able to lay asphalt. Mostly temperature, weather conditions, so it can't be wet, cannot be frozen, no frozen ground. And then also there's a temperature spec, 40 degrees and rising. And that's what'll be utilized. It's SDDOT spec, and that's what we've indicated on this project, and that's what we follow.
Other questions? Questions from the audience? Bob, you had a question to me earlier. Did you want to ask Western?
No, I'll talk to them later.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. And on this, I don't know that we need a motion.
Thank you for the update.
I do have one more. So Northwest 9th Street. So the previous would have been the road development project. This would be a project that's partially funded by the ARPA dollars and the state revolving fund. So the contractor had started work on that project at the end of August. And they've completed the water and the sanitary utilities for the first phase, which would be on 9th Street from Highland to Chicago. They're currently working on the storm sewer utilities. The roadway contractor will be mobilizing to the site tomorrow, likely start work on Wednesday. And they'll be working right behind the storm sewer installation in hopes to get the roadway reconstructed and still asphalt pavement down at the end of October.
And Steel Pros doing that too.
I believe they've contracted Bose to do that work.
Any other questions? Okay, this doesn't require a motion, but thank you for,
Absolutely.
for the update. Do we have any public comment? Okay, seeing no public comment, under announcements, our next commission meeting will be Monday, October 17th at 5:30 p.m. And again, just to remind people in that on October 11th at 5:30, we will be having a City Hall, Police Station, public forum on the proposal for the future. So with that, do we have a motion to go into executive session?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks.